If you say no, the house must face 19, now could it still do that with a huge front yard or landscape? It could, but I think this is just one more factor that helps it make it more palatable to not strip these corridors with commercial development, that you can argue that, yes, we can still put single family on these corridors.
Okay.
And I think that forcing them to face the corridor might be a disincentive. Some people might not mind facing US 19. A lot of people, I think, would, and that's why their houses are where they are. They're not on 19, 36, 74, 8.
But this is being worded that they cannot face 19? Am I reading?
Or 36.
I mean, or just that they can't face the.
I mean, because you're talking about this applies to a gateway ordinance.
No, what this says is principal building entrances shall be, so if it's a principal building, it shall be oriented to public streets with the exception of internal buildings not directly fronting on the street and single family. So they,
Oh, so you're
if you
making
want
an
it, it's
exception.
permissive. It's permissive, right? So it's
I see.
allowing, this one exception for internal buildings not directly fronting the street was already in there. And I just am adding a single family as an exception, that if you want to orient it, I mean, if you want to
I
orient
see.
it, front, you could, but this shall says, no, you have to. And my suggestion is, let's say that, okay, if it's a not-for-profit institution, if it's commercial, okay, it has to face these corridors. But let's have the, number one, the one exception was already internal buildings. And let's give an exception for single
That they
family.
can face.
Okay,
They
all right,
can't face, yeah.
All right,
Good.
that's what I need. I needed that explanation.
Mhm.
Okay. What about flag lots? Do you have any suggestions on?
Well, I think the easiest one is just, let's look at the purpose, is that the purpose is something that we can see and is right up front, must meet these. Technically, a flag lot is on it, but the building is way back there that you can't really see.
All structures be
So
outside.
I have no problem if we exempt a flag lot, but that's part of the discussion. That's
But
what
we
I
need to describe what a flag, I mean, if we're just exempting a driveway and an easement area, to me, but, you know, there's all kinds of different constructions of flag lots. What is the,
Well, traditionally, the flag, you have the flag stick and the flag.
I
The
understand.
flag stick is nothing but the driveway.
That's not an alteration, that's
All right,
one design.
I'm fine with that as long as that's described in the ordinance. That we're talking about the flag stick is what's being exempted.
Okay, well, we could, if you want to just hold well, you held your public hearing. You don't have to pass it, I mean, it's up to you. You can either allow me to wordsmith that, or let's just bring it back. You held your public hearing, you're good. That doesn't mean you have to send it to the Board of Commissioners yet. So if you want this to come back one more time and we tweak this language, we can do that one more time, or, you know. I think that language could be complicated enough. I want to make sure you're comfortable with it rather than just trust Doug. Even I'm going to say once in a while, don't just trust Doug. So I think if you want to massage this a little bit and take in what the flag lots, and maybe even for Johnny's concern, make it even more clear that the houses may be oriented however they want to be. They're not for it. I think it could be argued that, well, maybe your language says they have to not be. They may not be.
Just make sure it clears, that one thing is clear. That they, you know, they can, you know, that is their option with a single family. And for us a flag lot, I mean, on a true flag lot, you never see anything from the court anyway.
And I understand that, but he's got in red, how address flag lot, question mark. So what he's saying is it needs to be addressed in the ordinance, that flag lots are going to be exempted. That language currently does not exist in this document. Unless we put it in there, but we've already held our public hearing, so we're going to amend it now. We will have to amend it, hold a new public hearing, correct?
Yep.
And given the fact that we didn't get a whole lot of interest in this last public hearing, I would have thought there would have been more interest in this especially from civic organizations.
Well, I believe that the radio did announce it in their announcement. I think they referenced this ordinance, so
Yeah.
it was mentioned that way. And it was in your legal ad.
Okay. Or we could just leave it out there and, you know, somebody comes in with it. Of course, again, we don't know how many flag lots are, and of course, 10 years from now, somebody may create a flag lot.
Or tomorrow.
Tomorrow, may create, yes, exactly. So we could do nothing and they would, I guess they would have to come in and say, hey, I want to be exempted from this ordinance because I have a flag lot. And that's always a possibility as well, is it not?
Well, I think the idea when you're crafting an ordinance is if you can foresee problems of.
I understand what you're saying. So I'm just trying to, what say you, Madam Chairman? How would you like to proceed? You're the true leader.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think we do need to address it
Okay.
in some way or some form or fashion. It may not be perfect, but I think we do need to at least have something in the ordinance for that. As to exactly how to word that, because you're right. We don't know what's going to come up in
Right.
tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. But I think for what we have today or what we've seen as far as what's out there today, if we put something in place, that at least gives us a starting point should we have to go back and address this.
And I concur with that. I think the issues of flag lots and what they look like is probably the most important aspect. I mean, if we're gonna exempt something from the ordinance, what exactly are we exempting? Because you could have a
Right.
flag lot that could consist of the driveway and maybe a little easement area on either side, but it's only 45 foot long, you know?
Yes.
So I wouldn't want necessarily exempt that because I can see 45 feet. And so what's interior, you know, so maybe you could spitball some, or maybe get some input from the commissioners. I would say that, you know, if the stick is in excess of 150 feet, maybe they can get
Well, then that's probably a good idea. Let's come up with a number rather than just, relying on staff maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a legitimate concern. How long is the stick? To be honest, in Upson County, most sticks are pretty darn long.
Yeah.
But, in case you get one that's 50, 60, 40, when we envisioned, we talked about how deep would the corridor rules go. If you had not done first lot, which was logical, you could have gone 200 or 300, anything 300, 400, you wouldn't come up with a distance. So I would think that anything that would have been inside that distance, even though that's not the rule you use, what would have been inside, if we said, no, you're not allowed to pick just front lot, it's got to be a distance, 200, 300, anything within that, or partially in that, has to meet these rules. What would that number be? And then I would suggest any flag lot that falls inside of that number that you think it would have been, okay, then they have to meet the standard. So, yeah, maybe a flag stick of 70 feet, even though it might be kind of far out, that's too short. Yes, you have to meet these standards, which at this point, I don't think are too onerous.
The residential setbacks would be, front property line is for a home,
In AR, what, 35?
35, back property line.
35.
No,
Okay,
35,
that's 70 feet right there, and if your house,
Well, yeah, if your property line is 40 feet back, then the building isn't going to be for another 35, 75 feet after that. That's part of the calculation, I think.
Yeah, all you have to do is look at the tax assessor's website and see every kind of shape and design boundary lines there is. I mean, you could have a flag that's like this, and then it goes just a short ways, and then it does this. Looks like a funnel. I don't necessarily think a piece of property like that should be exempt, simply because it's sitting a little.
Well, I certainly think anything less than 50 feet, a flag stick of 50 feet
Yeah.
or less, but it would
Probably
go
should be
further back than
exempted.
that.
Yeah.
Like
I
some-
say,
For instance, the depth of a lot of your smallish strip centers would be about 200 feet.
right.
So maybe anything within 200 feet where the flag portion of the flag lots begins. Just some ideas to think about. I'll come up with a suggestion, but if we have something solid now.
And you could say, and unless there's some kind of vegetative buffer or something, I mean, it could be that, a tree line or something separates the property and you can't really see the interior. I mean, so you're
But
gonna,
trees can die and be chopped down.
that's true. That's true. That's true. So, we just need to decide, I mean, if this is an exemption, which, can be a powerful thing, we need to, what exactly are we exempting?
Well, and I think there's a reasonable distance at some point, because remember, we're trying to beautify just that first lot, that flag stick is so far back in the flag portion, it doesn't make sense for us to make them meet those requirements. But there might be, 40 feet, 50 feet, 80, whatever that magic number is that you decide to recommend to the, I guess the first question is, do you want to forward, the bigger question, do you want to forward this to the Board of Commissioners tonight, or do we want to have one more chop at it? I mean, if we don't make any changes, you can send it tonight as is without, and advertising a public hearing is just a matter of putting an ad in the paper. And
Yeah, but they've seen this already, and
we hope they have.
I-
It's been offered.
they
to-
should have seen it. It was offered to them, and I would have hoped that they would have glanced at it at least. So I'm more than willing of holding this back. Let's fix that one area that you've identified, and if necessary, hold another public hearing next. Could we possibly do it next, or are we talking about 2 commission meetings?
No, I have to put an ad in, so it's got to be 15 days prior, so easy to advertise for your next meeting.
Okay, let's just do it next meeting. Hey, what say you, Madam Chairman?
Can we just reopen the public hearing?
I guess we could do that,
Has it been open?
Absolutely.
but it was closed, was it not? Or are we still
Well,
open?
we've reopened them many times.
Oh, okay, well, let's just do that.
If we do that, then we can come back next month and finish this up
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
close it
I want to
back.
get it finished and off our table.
And in this case, the difference is an ad in the paper that a limited number of people may see. It'll still be posted on our agenda, which it's, flashes for 2 weeks. So it's not like there'll be zero notice. And we do send the notice in the
Okay.
agenda to the media.
All right, so let's just look at this again, real quick. Am I holding the right one in my hand?
It's one with red on it.
Yeah, I don't see that. What did I do with it? Maybe this is good. Yeah. All right, so the flag lot, what about the other things, guys? Was any we discussed the orientation of the family residence. I didn't see anything else that gave me any kind of heartburn as it was written.
It's easy enough to correct a little bit of language on the house, on the single family, and
Yeah,
just come up
that's-
with a legit number on the flag lot. If you got a decent lot to build on, 35 on the front, 35 on the back, for the width of the house to set in there, you're gonna be basically, 100 feet depth, anyway.
Anything over 100 feet.
Yeah, you
That's
basically, if you got a
exactly-
decent lot to build on the front, that flag legs just about got to be close to 100 foot anyway. So, you know, if you come up with 100 foot is the magic number, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, I concur.
And what we'll do is we'll just make these changes, and then you're going to reopen the public hearing.
Right now.
Okay. All right, does that mean we can move along, or
No, you gotta.
What's
So,
that?
Sam, I've got one other thing. Item G, where it talks about screening materials, walls, fences. We've got in there, missing sections or pieces shall be replaced with identical materials. Should we put identical materials and of same color?
or design?
Well, I don't know
Color.
if identical is going to be
Material, color, and
interpreted as color.
design?
Yeah.
Yes, I concur with that. I concur with that.
That way we don't end up with,
Hodgepodge.
yeah, we've had that here recently, so.
All right, so the only word is colored right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, identical materials and color,
Okay.
just so it has some uniformity to it.
Okay. Was there anything else?
You gotta open.
So that's all I had on
You gotta
that.
open hearing.
I gotta open the public hearing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, so, we wanna,
I'll make a motion to reopen the public hearing for the gateway ordinance.
okay. Can I get a second? All right. All right, the public hearing is open for the gateway ordinance, and we're just gonna leave it open?
Yes.
Okay. All right, fair enough. All right, so that means we can move along to tiny home ordinance discussion.
Yes.
Yes. Was there discussion? I read this ordinance, and I'm satisfied with it as written. I think at least it's a good start, whereby at least under certain conditions we permit the construction of tiny homes in the community. And in some ways, you know, I think they accent and enhance the community. So, was there any other discussion or comments? Y'all, now that you've seen it in black and white, do we need to take a month and look at it and study it?
I read it.
You've read it? Yeah, I've read it too.
Y'all have any issues?
I don't have any.
No, I'm good with it.
Mr. Vice Chair, the only thing then that has been brought up to me, and this is outside parties, is that we don't have a tiny home subdivision in your ordinance. You've got it either as part of a manufactured home park, and this is all what you discussed, or a separate tiny home park, similar to an RV park. There's no provision to have a tiny home subdivision where each one would be on a separate lot.
Right.
If that, and that's the, you know, we didn't really discuss that at length.
Park and subdivision is just a matter of adding a different language in there, right?
Well, we'd have to add it, because right now you would not allow a subdivision in. You're either gonna have a tiny home park, or you're gonna allow tiny homes in a manufactured home park, and that's it. And certainly you haven't allowed them to be scattered in the other zoning districts.
Right.
Okay, what's the difference in a tiny home park and a tiny home subdivision?
My question is that.
A tiny home park is gonna be on one big piece of land, a subdivision, and everyone is on a separate lot.
Oh, I see.
Legally owned by
So I'm
whoever. Could still be the same owner, and he just rents individual lots.
Right.
Or he could sell some of them and keep some of them.
It's a rental plus versus personal private owner, is what you're saying.
Well, it's just like somebody having
Well, it's a size.
almost like cabins or something.
But you still
on a
gonna
piece-
allow the house
piece
to
of
be built on
property.
the same size lot in a subdivision.
Well, you would actually have to definitely prescribe a lot. For instance, we didn't have to do that in the tiny home park. We do describe, I think, a minimum size for the lot in it, but you didn't have to. You could just say you can't have any, so many per acre, and then do your thing.
Well, that's pretty much what we've done on the park. You don't have 5 per acre. Right?
Right, but we didn't. We also prescribe size of the lot in there. You don't have to. I'm just saying you don't have to. You could have just said we're not going to say an individual has a certain lot in there of a certain size.
Well, in order to have a tiny home park, do we need to have a minimum acreage for that?
Well, it's in it.
It's already in there.
Okay.
But it's the gross.
All right, and I concur with you. I have no problem whatsoever creating language for a tiny home subdivision. There is a very nice one over in Coweta County that I once visited. I took a former GBI employee home, and I mean, I would consider it's the houses are like little cottages, and they're really quaint and really cute, and it was in a subdivision, and it was super nice.
Now the unique thing,
for efficient living.
maybe not so unique for Epsom County, but is that obviously in a park, there's going to be some sort of a septic system, and we've already got that taken care of in a manufactured home park.
Right.
So the question is, now we get into subdivision, so there's absolutely separate lots, individual from every other lot. If they're too small, basically if they're under an acre, you can't have septic and well. So you almost would, where would that be in Epsom County? It would have to be someplace pretty close to the city where you could extend their lines out, or places where we have water. So is it easy in Upson County to have a subdivision like that? Maybe not
but
so much.
If somebody wanted to develop one, that's really on them, is it not?
It would
As long
be.
as we permit it under certain circumstances and.
Well, and obviously the manufactured
define
home
what's
parks that we
permitted.
have some sort of system, although maybe a lot of them might be, some of them are tied into the community systems, but yeah, they could do what the
Well,
manufactured home parks are doing.
Look, and maybe we're all wet. Maybe the public, once we get to a public hearing stage on this, they'll be lined out the door saying, no tiny homes, and they'll be picking at us out there. I don't see that, and then maybe we'll have to reconsider.
Well, and I have no,
Go
let's
from here.
go ahead with this one unless there's some outcry, which I don't anticipate for a tiny home subdivision. Let's just see how this goes.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Let's float this and see how it applies.
I think most of the
They may come
inquiries,
back to us anyway, saying that. So, what say you, Madam Chairman?
Yeah, I think this is a start. I would be interested to see if anybody comes forth with questions about a subdivision in the public hearing. I don't know if that input came from a county commissioner or not, but I think you're right. If you wanted to do a subdivision in order to have your own well and sewer or septic, it doesn't make sense for the size of lot. So there's very limited places to where that could be.
Yeah.
So my gut tells me to start with where we are now, and if we need to go back and address that, should something change, then maybe we do.
Okay.
I mean,
So, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we just open this, accept this as is, and open it up for public hearing, and see.
at your next meeting when it's
At the-
advertised.
Yes.
Exactly, exactly.
And then see what flies from it.
And see what happens.
That's what makes.
right.
Okay,
That makes sense.
I'm good with that.
okay.
All right, so we'll have both of these at public hearing, and they might be out of your in basket.
Praise the Lord.
Okay,
On to the next one.
Praise the Lord and pass it hand.
okay. All right,
pass the
so do
ordinance.
we need to have a motion for that, or do we need to do formalize anything? Okay.
Well, if you want me to advertise a public hearing, if you please put that in the form of a motion.
Okay.
Make a motion to have a public hearing for tiny houses
That we
As it
adopt
stands.
this ordinance
as it stands,
as written.
as is.
As written, and we open up public hearing. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you.
Yeah. Joel seconded, as did Alicia.
I think pretty much everybody said it.
Okay. All right, so moving along. I think we're now down to other business. Something about a wood memorandum.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this was the summary that came out of the consultant after the windshield tour that we took, and of course, the chair was on that with us, so if she's got any comments, but this is the product that they came up with. The only thing that I would say is the issues that they felt were summarized. We had a number of commissioners and the county manager and Madam Chair there, and they basically had input. Let's go look at these particular places. What do we not like? What would we like to see some policy about? And that's basically what you see it listed as issues here. So you've got convenience stores with maybe they're too proximate to one another, they're in poor condition, transients of the license holders, gaming machines were discussed, especially, of course, in conjunction with those convenience stores. Maybe temporary signs. Our current sign ordinance does not regulate temporary signs as defined. And of course, convenience stores have an abundance normally of those type of signs, so maybe you would want to limit them, the number, the size, or something there. There was also concern with unpaved parking. And then there was also concentration. We looked at a number of the self-storage or the mini warehouse units. They were concerned about their design and what they look like. So those were the issues that came out during the tour. You'll also see that there are a number of businesses that were in the moratorium that really didn't get discussed. So you may see those drop out of any proposed ordinance. Tattoo parlors, tobacco shops and vape shops, car washes, pawn shops, they were not really discussed. Used car lots were discussed a little bit, so that was another thing that, again, this is, the consultant will be doing most of the work, so at some point, there'll be another product after this that might be a draft ordinance, and you'll have your first crack at that. I'm not sure what the next product will be. We'll see.
So how does just for my own edification, how does the process change? It's an ordinance that's provided to us, and then we take a look at it and amend it.
I just think, as you know, what I call the heavy lifting,
Right.
obviously on the tiny home ordinance and on the
Gateway.
gateway ordinance, you've done all the heavy lifting. In this case, the consultant is doing the heavy
Okay.
lifting, so you're gonna have a fairly clean product, researched and refined to some degree. So that's the major difference. They're acting as another staff person.
I'm good with that. Okay. Is that good for that item there, Doug? All right. The next item is 7, planning commissioners' issues and announcements. Anything? Cool.
No, I haven't.
You don't have anything for us?
No, sir.
You usually have something for us. What about you, Madam Chair?
I don't have anything.
Okay, we miss you.
I miss you guys too.
Too,
Thanks for coming
I
for
forgot what you look like.
FaceTime him after the meeting, Dennis.
Johnny, you took your mask off.
Yeah, I got a negative report.
Oh,
We got
good,
a
good for
Terry
good
got
for
a-
you. Good for
Terry
you.
got a negative report, so I pulled the
Congratulations.
mask
All
off.
right, wonderful. Jeff, anything?
No, I have nothing.
Nothing. All right, moving along. Secretary issues, and we know you have some.
Only one, but yes, that's another topic. We do have, and I have hired today, was his first day, new code enforcement officer. His name is Jeffrey Dean. He lives in the Yatesville area. If you know him, it might have been when he was with the Forestry Service. but he's now working for us, and it'll take him a while to get up to speed, but he got hit with a lot of information today between my orientation and the deputy clerk, Tammy Buchanan, had a lot of information for him, so.
Say again his name, please.
Jeffrey Dean,
He goes by Jeff, right?
Jeff Dean,
He
correct.
goes by Jeff. I heard that we had a second hour too. Have we made the second?
We're still interviewing for the second one.
Okay.
We've got some good candidates, but we've got a couple more interviews, so hopefully we'll be up to 3 or 4 candidates that we'll be able to pick from. But there will be a second one, and we have candidates who've been interviewing, but nobody's been selected yet.
Okay.
Good.
And I have no other issues or announcements.
Okay, all right. All right, then I will entertain a motion, that the next item is adjournment. I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. We
I'll
adjourn.
make a motion to
All
adjourn.
right. And I'm gonna take her, she's the boss lady. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
6:43.
Aye. We are adjourned.
6:43. I'll
All right.
go to the YouTube.
I got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
You wanna?
Take care of yourself.